If you're a lover of coffee, you might be one of the reasons why Starbucks became so popular. So sit back and be inspired by today's video about how Starbucks became a coffee giant that everyone loves. There are a ton of coffee quotes and sayings that could really express how a lot of people feel about Starbucks and coffee in general. It's common knowledge that most people start their day with a cup of joe, and chances are that cuppa is straight from Starbucks. But one thing experts started to question is how coffee evolved in society, from being a dreaded drink to something that people can't function without. This led to another question on how Starbucks could change this mindset and actually dominate the whole industry to accept coffee. To answer these questions, we have to trace back to where it all started, in the rainy city of Seattle, and in the mind of a man who created all this modern caffeine craze all by himself. This is definitely a great time to pour yourself a cup of coffee and listen to the tale of how Starbucks, together with a green mermaid, changed the world one cup of coffee at a time. It was in the early 70s in Seattle's downtown. Three college friends who loved coffee so much talked about starting a business together. Among this trio was Gordon Bowker, who insisted that they should serve only the finest premium quality coffee, which was unusual to Americans at that time. This even pushed him to go on round trips to and from Vancouver just to canvass coffee beans and compare them to what he had at home. Through his determination, he was able to earn the trust of his colleagues, and they too decided to put their own orders. This is where the eureka moment of the trio started. They now have the source that can supply them to sell great quality coffee beans to the market of Seattle. But because of a lack of business savviness, they had to find someone who could mentor them and take their business to the next level. That is when Alfred Peet entered the picture. He's an entrepreneur who introduced top-end coffee to the States and became the forefather of the coffee industry in America. Despite all this prestige, Peet still managed a coffee shop in Berkeley, California, serving fresh beans coming straight from his warehouse. These beans go through a quality check and are made sure that they are high quality and then roasted to perfection. Through his mentorship, Gordon Bowker, Zev Siegel, and Jerry Baldwin were able to establish strong connections to premium coffee brokers and even learn the art of roasting their own Arabica coffee beans. Then, in 1971, they took the risk and opened the very first Starbucks coffee shop in a small store located near Seattle's Pike Place Market. They used their own money to sell coffee, tea, and spices. As for the origin of the name, it was believed to be inspired by a character in the book Moby Dick named Starbuck. This name, however, evolved as the trio decided to open 5 other locations in Seattle within a decade. The name Starbucks evolved from a mining camp on the nearby Mount Rainier, Camp Starbo, which became more synonymous all around Seattle as it is becoming known because of the quality of the sold beans. Of course, at that time, coffee drinks were still not sold in stores, so people would just stop by Starbucks to pick their beans and brewing equipment, go home, whip that Java drink themselves, and enjoy the aroma of freshly ground coffee as well. But that all changed when a coffee machine salesman visited one of the store's locations. Howard Schultz was only 28 years old at that time. He worked for a Swedish-based company, Hammerplast, which specializes in selling premium quality European kitchen appliances to the growing US industry. Now you might be wondering why he visited Starbucks. It was out of curiosity because he wanted to know why one of his clients in Seattle was buying more coffee machines than Macy's. So he decided to take a trip to Seattle and see what all of this was about. And after entering Starbucks for the first time, the enticing aroma of freshly ground coffee beans greeted him. Then he was handed a delectable sample of a French press Sumatra. That's when it hit him because he realized how he was not just inside an ordinary coffee store. He felt as if he was home and tasting the sample. Schultz shared how he had never had any cup of coffee as good as that. So that was really an eye-opening experience for him because it's not easy to have an experience like that with coffee, especially since coffee is considered weak, cheap, tasteless, and bland. So there was no way that coffee shops actually took the time to create such masterpieces. Not to mention that the coffee you have at home is usually chilled in cans. So when Schultz came across the coffee Starbucks was selling, he decided he had to be a part of their team. He talked to the founders, and even though it took him almost a year to convince them, he was appointed as Starbucks Director of Sales and Market in 1982. Then, the following year after he was hired, the founders decided to send him to a trade show in Milan, Italy. This week-long trip changed Schultz's life because he was given a chance to explore the streets of this Italian city and allowed himself to be taken aback by the mind-blowing cafes with their own way of making your coffee experience unique and worthwhile. Through this experience, Schultz had an idea. He raced back to Seattle to pitch this idea to the bosses. He wanted to transform Starbucks into an Italian-inspired cafe where instead of just selling ground coffee beans, they could craft the drinks and sell them to their customers. But the founders weren't convinced since they believed that the people were already satisfied enough to just buy their beans, and the business has never been better. So after putting his best foot forward, he decided to leave Starbucks in the year 1985, but of course, that was only temporary. Schultz realized he has already gotten this far from being a student who has worked hard and made some necessary sacrifices to survive Brooklyn, even if it meant having to sell his own blood just to get by through college back then, to someone who just simply turns his back from his dreams. So he decided to be the one to bring it to life. Using the same supplied beans sold in Starbucks, he opened his own cafe, Il Giornale, where he was able to make his vision of a reality of providing a comfortable environment where customers can come and drink good quality coffee. This was the one that he pitched to the founders but got rejected. And right there and then, his cafe became the talk of the town. But despite the success that he had garnered, there was something about his love for Starbucks and that green mermaid that he just couldn't shrug off. As fate would have it, the founders faced some financial problems after acquiring Peet's Coffee in 1984. 2 years after, intending to focus all their resources and time on Peet's Cafe, they decided to sell Starbucks to no other than Howard Schultz, who they know would take good care of the brand. Then, without any hesitations, Schultz grabbed the opportunity. After assessing his financials, he realized that he was far from the $3.8 million price tag with a 60-day exclusivity period before the company raised the financing. But Schultz did not give up too quickly. He began his venture to find ambitious investors who shared the same belief in taking the American coffee culture to another level. Yes, it was a difficult pitch to make, especially at that time because coffee consumption in the US has been continually declining for the past 2 decades after soft drinks dominated the industry. But Schultz is on a mission to introduce the Americans to what he called the Starbucks language with words such as cafe latte and grand cappuccino. His trip to Italy inspired him to start a unique cafe business, not only with the quality of coffee served, but also with how it is served. This included substituting the cup sizes, small, medium, and large, to tall, grande, and venti. Then, being his boldest move ever, Schultz pitched to the investor to price each cup of coffee $3. This gave him the impression of how confident he is that Americans will love his coffee enough to buy it at such a high price, seeing that each regular coffee is only about 50 cents per cup. But, well, his efforts paid off. During the summer of 1987, he was finally able to raise the $3.8 million that he needed to purchase Starbucks. He then took complete control of the cafe, merging it with Il Giornale, with a mission to establish the daring and unique plans that he had for Starbucks. To do that, he hired the best managers to work hand in hand with him. In just a matter of a few years, Starbucks grew and flourished to 140 different locations and filed the necessary paperwork to go public in 1992. On the day of its initial public offering, or IPO, Starbucks released the price of $17 per piece and raised around $25 million, about 12% of the whole company. This infusion of cash allowed Schultz to begin the company's rapid expansion that led to the store count tripling in a matter of 2 years. Then, in 1996, Starbucks unlocked another milestone by opening its 1,000th store and its first international cafe in Japan. Another 3 years passed and Starbucks store count has doubled again with a total of 2,500 locations. Howard Schultz's strategy was different. That's why it's effective. And to understand it, you have to take in the buzz that came from the launch of numerous Starbucks that kept on popping like mushrooms in every corner. Now, what was the fuzz really about? Schultz's tactic was trying to create a cafe empire that is all about consistency. So you can assume that the coffee experience remains the same wherever the new location is. For example, entering a Starbucks in Tokyo is the same as entering a Starbucks in Seattle, greeted with great-tasting authentic coffee handed to you by a Starbucks barista who wears the same green apron as all baristas in Starbucks wear. The consistency that Schultz established became the key to the success of Starbucks. Despite it being 13 years in the making, Schultz finally reached his goal of introducing the Americans to new coffee culture. However, customers first complained that the coffee being served was too strong for them, but Schultz continued until he was able to convince the people that this is how coffee should taste like. And that's when the American customer's mindset and impression about coffee was changed completely. After seeing that his vision of bringing high-quality coffee to the public had been set to motion, he decided to step down as CEO of the company in 2000, leaving the company financially stable and heading to broader horizons with 2,800 locations and counting. Even though he stepped down as the highest role in the company, he still stayed as a chief global strategist on the company's board. But like any company, they also reached the point where they lost their way when the new management charted a new strategy that made the expansion progress even faster. In 7 years, Starbucks' growth quadrupled with almost 1,500 new stores a year, or around 4 new stores every day, until the day when they made one of their biggest marketing mistakes. They opened a location inside the 600-year-old Forbidden City in Beijing, China. The Chinese media attacked the company, saying that they are belittling China's culture. The incident was even seen as an invasion of the heart of China's history and was compared to the height of disrespect as seen when Starbucks was to open a store inside the White House. The incident forced the company to close the China outlet in 2007. Despite this unfortunate circumstance, Starbucks continued flourishing with other stores growing every 4 hours. Things have never been better, especially after the company was awarded for its year-over-year record revenues and profits from their rapid growth. Then, that's where the problem started, because when seen on the outside, the company was thriving, but it was suffering tremendously on the inside. The internal problems started hurting the entire company, causing the foundation to slowly deteriorate. As the new management thought that the coffee should be made with more water to make its serving size bigger, but unfortunately not better. So yes, the store sales were increasing because they prioritized profit over serving customers right with making good quality coffee. The core values that Howard established were now gone, together with the times that the shop's baristas were trained to manually press the coffee instead of just putting the beans in the management-required automatic espresso machines. Also, the culture of establishing a close-knit relationship with the customers by interacting with them inside the physical stores was gone as the management started opening the drive-through lanes. These only show how Starbucks had begun losing its soul in return for rapid growth. But then, the economy suffered too, and the next thing people knew was that a global financial crisis was already happening. This pushed people to reassess their expenses and saw that spending $8 on a coffee drink is now impractical. News traveled fast, and then a leaked memorandum was discovered. It was from Howard Schultz, addressed to the internal management. It was a complaint of how the company's values were no longer evident, as many things have been altered ever since he stepped down as CEO. The essence of the Hull Cafe is no longer there. Even the aroma of the coffee beans when you first entered the store had faded. With this note, the company decided it was time to bring Howard back on top to help pull the company around by reviving its roots. So it was January 8, 2008 when Schultz returned as Starbucks CEO, and his first order of business was firing the new executives and closing hundreds of stores. Then, to show their customers that Starbucks is serious about bringing back the product quality and customer services they promised, Schultz ordered that all their American stores close in the afternoon of February 26. This was done so that for 3 undisturbed hours, the baristas would be given a refresher on how to craft the basic drinks with utmost perfection. During that half-day closure, the company lost almost $6 million in sales. But for Howard, it was a price that he was willing to pay just to bring the company's soul back to life. As the new CEO, he also decided it was time to get around the freshly ground coffee beans and manual La Marzocco espresso machines that were used initially. Then to restore the former experience of customers being able to watch their baristas as they craft each drink in front of their very eyes. Schultz also thought that hiring their first ever chief technical officer was only suitable to help foresee the newly improved changes made around the company. Eventually, after establishing all these, Schultz focused intensely on adapting more technology and launching Starbucks Loyalty Card, which later paved the way for the company to create an application that could cater to their their customers more efficiently so that they no longer have to pay in cash. This breakthrough became responsible for the 30% increase in the company's total sales. So for the second time around, Starbucks prospered under the direction of the one and only Howard Schultz. Not only is the company back on track, but it is also climbing its way to the top with 1,600% in just a matter of 9 years. With this, Schultz decided it was time to revisit the company's goal to establish a store in China, which became a reality and is now one of the locations that can actually open a store every 15 hours ever since December 2016. Schultz, who is now seeing the results and has the confidence that the foundational principles were re-established and permanently engraved in the company's culture, decided to step down as the CEO again. He left the complete control of the company to the chief operating officer at that time, Kevin Johnson, who, under the vision and guidance of Schultz, was able to continue the company's legacy of being a small-town coffee shop to a multinational coffee empire that is worth around $100 billion. And what's more impressive was how Kevin maintained the foundation that Schultz tried so hard to establish. Starbucks was able to stay true to its promised social responsibility. Even though it's a business, the profit should only come second after the customer's welfare and coffee experience. This principle came straight from Schultz's own vision as he struggled through life, especially when he witnessed a scenario that deeply affected him. He was 7 years old during that time, and his father was on the couch with a cast to make sure that his broken hip and ankle would still work. Sadly, his father got fired from being a delivery guy because of the injuries he attained at work. Seeing how his father suffered after not being able to work and provide for his needs, Schultz promised that someday he would create a company where his father could actually work. And that's what he did. He made sure that the working environment in Starbucks was honorable. It is a company that pays more for health insurance than it usually does. It is a place of comfort where employees are called family members rather than just employees. Also, he preferred calling his employees his partners. Of course, Schultz made sure that his employees were in good hands, offering them good salaries or maybe giving college tuition for those who are more than willing to learn again. These perks are available for all baristas as long as they follow the company's values on properly serving their customers right with excellent customer services and experiences that could last a lifetime. Starbucks has been through a lot, but they rose through the challenge. We hope that by watching this video, you can learn that dark times shouldn't hinder you from continuing to survive, because one day, when you're your happiest version, you can look back to the story that inspired you a lot. The company has proven so many times that to reach your goals, you just have to find a source of inspiration and stay true to what matters most. And that's a wrap for today's video. I hope you learned a lot about how Starbucks became a coffee giant that wowed a lot of people. Many videos have been posted to help you spark that inspiration within you. Please don't forget to leave a like, share, and comment below. Thank you for watching this video, and see you soon!